From the Corner Office is brought to you by Synovus Bank, championing business growth through trusted relationship-driven banking throughout the Gulf Coast region. Some might say Owen LaFave puts the fun in finance. He's a banker heading up the Pinellas County market for the Bank of Tampa, and while he takes his clients' work seriously, he doesn't always take himself too seriously. That includes humor, one of his 3 H's to live a good life, the other 2 being humility and honesty. It has led to a lot of success in his banking career. The Business Observer writes often about bankers at the top of their game, like Owen, both in print and online. To read more, subscribe. Go to businessobserverfl.com. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Owen LaFave, Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa and host of the Money Market podcast. Owen, welcome and thanks for being here.
I appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for the invite.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get into your career. We're going to get into the Bank of Tampa and your banking career, but we're also going to get into leadership. And I know from talking to Corey and Bill and some of your colleagues at the Bank of Tampa, leadership is really important to the bank's structure and culture. And I want to talk about that as well.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
So we're going to start, Owen. Let's get our audience to know you a little better with some rapid fire questions.
All right. Lay it on me, Mark.
All right, let's do it. Are you a morning person or a night owl? And how does that affect your leadership style?
Very much a morning person. I will say, although I can jump out of bed. The alarm is set for 5 o'clock. And usually I wake up, which is, I never enjoy it, but I wake up 10 minutes before the alarm goes off.
Really? You're up,
but,
you're ready to go.
I wake up naturally, but I need a minute to kind of get the engines going. So I do work out in the morning, but get up, take the dogs out, grab that cup of coffee, sit down, I read a couple papers, catch up on some social media and LinkedIn, and look at some economic reports. But by 6 o'clock, my goal is to be out the door and on the way to the gym.
Wow. Excellent. It's a good morning routine. Okay. Owen, what's one word that your team would use to describe you and your leadership style?
Yeah, Mark, I struggled with this a little bit. I immediately went to dependable, but I asked my team, and so they said, which is very flattering, by the way, and they're probably brown-nosing, but loyal, trustworthy, integrity, smart, compassionate, and fair. So I'll take any one of those, man. I love it. It was
you got some
nice.
Good ones. I mean, at least it didn't go south on you, didn't go opposite effect on you. Dependable's a good one, though. I think that's like the ultimate leadership compliment, right? That somebody they could count on you.
Well, that's the one that I came up with, but trustworthy, I think maybe falls in that category.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Last rapid fire question. There's differences between these two things. So I'm curious, what motivates you more? Winning or not losing?
Winning. I don't like losing, but I just prefer to win. I want to see my name, my team, the bank on top of the leaderboard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think it's like an interesting thing to be motivated by winning as opposed to not thinking about not losing. When you go into it, you're like, we want to win this deal, not lose, not just be okay with tying.
I think it's a different mindset. I mean, yeah. I go back to, my days of playing in sports, and when you play not to lose, it's very different. And it's to me, in my mind, it's just not as effective as playing to win.
What sports is this back in high school, college? Tell us about that. What did you play?
Yeah, so I grew up playing a mix of hockey, football, a little bit of baseball, from Wisconsin originally. And the challenge was I moved away when I was 12. So moved to a suburb of DC, stopped playing hockey. And that was kind of my primary sport. Played football, came to Tampa, Florida. And the hockey infrastructure is very different today. I mean, I've got a high school senior that's graduating who played hockey since he was 6. I didn't have that opportunity, so I played a little bit rec, played football, and then interesting enough, I was an all-state trumpet player. I was a good football player. I wasn't great. I probably could have did Division II, and I had to choose between music and football. And I thought, I've got an opportunity to get a scholarship in music, which, if anybody knows anything about like collegiate programs, all the money is in sports. There's no money in music. And so it was very disappointing, but I don't know. I don't think I would have did it any different.
Yeah. Wow. Where'd you end up going to college?
USF.
Oh, wow. Okay.
University of South Florida, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
And then I continued to play ice hockey up until, 2020 as an adult, and it wasn't because of COVID. It was actually I had an injury that resulted in, well, I shattered my left leg and was on the couch for 6 weeks, and with a
Ouch.
wife who has a very demanding job and 4 kids, I just decided that, it was time to retire.
That just sounds way, way too intense for me. But let's stick with that. Before we get into some questions about your career, what did you learn? Think about your time playing sports. What did you learn about leadership from your coaches and from, that activities and that stage in your life?
I had the benefit of playing team sports, and so I'm always a fan of the team and the collaborative effort, and that it takes a village, right? You all need to be rowing in the same direction, and everybody needs to be on the same page. And yes, there's opportunity for individual success, but the only way the team is going to win is if everybody is working together towards a common goal. And I think that more than anything is the biggest leadership lesson that I take away.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so you get into a career in finance. Tell us someone about your career and how you kind of got to where you are today as market president for the Bank of Tampa in Pinellas County, Pinellas
I
market.
try I'll do the Cliff Note version, but my
Yes.
entire life I wanted to be a doctor. I got to college and I don't know why it hit me in college and I started taking some science and then I did the math and I realized I was going to be 30 before I had a real job. Got really impatient, was going to school and college in the 90s and the dot-com era was crazy and stocks seemed sexy. And so when I had to pivot, I pivoted to a degree in finance. Fast forward, I graduate, had a job at Morgan Stanley, thinking I had a job at Morgan Stanley coming out of college. And right before I graduated in 2001, I got a phone call saying, we have a hiring freeze. Don't call us. We'll call you when there's availability. So what do I do with a financing degree? Someone suggested banking. And really, I never thought I would have a career in banking, but interviewed at one of the bigger banks for their management trainee program. They wanted to send me to, their training out of town and then put me at the end of their 18-month period of time wherever in the country they needed me in whatever department. And I was very clear that I wanted to be in Tampa. I didn't want to do retail banking. They said I could list that as a preference. That wasn't good enough for me. So I ended up taking a job at a community bank and had the fortune not really recognizing how lucky I was that everybody came from a bigger bank. So I got big bank credit training and then did that for 2 years, moved into a lending role. Kind of over my career, I ended up leaving banking for a period of time attempting to do some real estate development right before the great financial crisis. And as you can imagine, how that turned out. But was able to get back into banking, was recruited back into banking, and really had a real estate specialty. And so that was it's the bulk of my career. Spent some time in special assets after the great financial crisis. The Bank of Tampa 13 years ago now had recruited me to create their commercial real estate group, which I successfully did for 6 years, built a portfolio and a team, and the portfolio in commercial real estate is about a third of the portfolio. And then they asked me to go to Pinellas County and continue to build out Pinellas. So as it stands today, my title is the Pinellas County Market President. So I'm responsible for all operations in Pinellas, but commercial real estate bank wide and marketing bank wide report to me.
Yeah, I think that's when we first interacted was when you started that commercial real estate program at Bank of Tampa. And
Probably was, yeah.
yeah, because that was obviously important to for your career and for our readership as well. So Bank of Tampa, when you talk about Corey Neal and Bill West, who was leaders at the bank, leadership development has always been important. Tell us about sort of the bank and its leadership development and how you've grown as a leader there.
Well, the bank's philosophy, and this actually goes back to our founder, Jerry Divers. So over 40 years ago, I mean, his philosophy on the bank was employees always come first. So take care of your employees. If your employees are happy, they'll provide great service to your clients. Your clients will be happy. They'll tell other people. By virtue of that, the bank will grow and then the shareholders will build wealth because the bank will be profitable. So the bank has always put the employees at the forefront of everything we do. And in even the ownership structure of the bank, we have a very attractive ESOP plan. So all of us are owners at the bank. And so we invest in our people and we've got various leadership programs. I mean, I myself as a graduate out of Stonier Banking School. The bank invested in me to send me there and further my career. So I mean, we're always looking to build leaders, and as you know, Mark, I mean, in today's day and age, it's really hard to find good quality employees in banking or any other industry. So if we could take them in, get them in early, build their skill set, and have them grow within the organization, I mean, that's kind of an ideal scenario for us.
Yeah, one of the things I've seen from you, Owen, over the years is I think it's you're like made to be a community banker because you're out there in the community, you go to all these events, and you take your work seriously, but sometimes not yourself so seriously. And I love that because you don't always see that in banking. Like you seem to be having fun while you're doing this, and that leads me to this question. Tell us about the banker with sign. What is the banker with sign? I think I want to hear more about how this came to be.
Banker with sign. So, in full disclosure, I ripped that off from a guy who was on Instagram that is dude with sign.
Dude with
And
sign.
I started
Okay.
following this guy, a number of years ago, and I think he's up to 8 million followers now. But at some point, it just dawned on me that I'm like, how ridiculous would it be if I was standing out on a street corner in a full suit, holding a cardboard sign, and just the mind blend of those two worlds coming together, and then come up with some business related content, but be silly, have fun with it, and was just kind of looking for engagement. I do a lot of economic posts too, in addition to now that, the podcast. I really enjoy the intellectual side of things. It doesn't get as good as engagement as putting, the cardboard sign out there. So I looked and made sure no one else was doing that on LinkedIn, and I couldn't find anybody out there. And the first couple I posted, at least in LinkedIn world, I mean, went viral. So now it's something that, I'm known for. I walk into any event and everyone kinda jokes and like, "Where's your cardboard sign?" And I'm like, "Well, not bringing it inside."
Come on, that's in the car, don't bring that in. But no, I totally get that, and I want you to talk about the podcast in a second, but I totally understand the challenge that you have because you're doing these deep dive podcasts, and we're very similar. We're getting these guests on our podcast that are other business leaders in the Tampa Bay, Sarasota region, and we do the you're doing these great interviews, and then people only want to read the one thing. They want the quick video, right?
Yeah.
They're not diving in as much. You're like, wait a minute, this is an hour interview. It's a deep conversation. So, but I'm glad. So the sign, you're getting good reception from that, good in the community.
The engagements is crazy. I mean, I've got some that are a little more business appropriate. They get like people to think, but the one that was just absolutely mind blowing that did go viral, man. I think it got like 400,000 impressions. Was stop dressing like you're on Zoom. And for whatever, man, that resonated with people. I think I had 3,000 comments, and right down the middle. 50% were absolutely, we've gotten too casual and we need to get back to being a little more professional. The other half was like, why are you trying to control me? Doesn't matter how I look when I come to work. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
this is
I
it's all
went
it's
back
all my
and read that
privilege.
yes, I went back and read that post again, researching this, and it is I stopped I got too deep in the rabbit hole in the comments, and I'm like, enough with this. Um,
At some point I just had to say, like, I can't look at these comments anymore. I gotta move on.
yes. Well, before we get into leadership questions, one last question on you and your career. Tell us about the podcast. How did you start that, or not how? I mean, why, and what's that about the podcast that you started?
I will say it has evolved into something that I think is pretty unique and special, and I wish I came from it from a different place. But it started with, I was asked to take responsibility for marketing, and thought like let's mix it up and do some short form, like vertical, just very like 20-second, 30-second clips. And none of them were great. And this is no shade on any of our bankers or even myself. At some point, I'm like, I put me on camera and I watched it, and I'm like, oh, it's fine, it's just not really compelling. And so came up with this idea of doing a podcast. And really in the beginning, it was like, can we have a good conversation and just kind of like build some traffic and put some content out there. And then what it evolved into is, wish I this is where I would have started. I mean, we are highlighting people doing amazing things in the community. I mean, Tampa Bay, holistically, I mean, just has incredible businesses, incredible people doing things. And as a community bank, being invested in the community, being a part of the community, how do we highlight the people that are doing great things? And it's people listen to it. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, we've had, by far, YouTube is where we get the most engagement, and we've had a couple. Mike's Weather Page, who, if anybody follows him, he's a local amateur meteorologist, but great following. I mean, his had 200,000 views, and we've had a handful that are over 100,000 views. And I think on average, I mean, folks you'd never even heard of, but have great stories to tell. I think we're getting like 5,000 views, and it continues to grow. And
Yeah.
it's shocking and humbling that people watch it.
You're doing great. I've been following it and like I said, listening to some of your guests and episodes. So Good job. And when you're done listening to this podcast from the corner office, you could find Money Market Podcast. That's Owen's podcast. Okay, Owen. So leadership. What's one characteristic you think every leader should have, and why?
I think humility, but I will say, I mean, I mean, and I took this from John Mack, who was a longtime leader at Morgan Stanley. And early in my career, when I was becoming a leader and was reading books and taking everything in that I could, I mean, his philosophy was to be honest, be humble, and lead with humor. And that just resonated with me, and that's how I try to display myself as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. Three H's: honesty, humility, and humor. All good things to have in the workplace. What's the leadership lesson, Owen, that you feel like when I feel like maybe you wish you learned earlier in life, something that you do now in your current role that you wish you learned earlier?
I think just don't need in I think everybody is guilty of this at some level. Like people come to you and just expect you to have the answer. And as a leader, you need to recognize that we don't have the answers. Oftentimes we do, but it's a collaborative approach and asking questions and just being honest and saying, I don't know. Let's think through this. Let's get some additional information. But yeah, we don't always have the answers.
I'm curious on that front, sort of a next question on that. When you think you know the answer, but you want, I struggle with this, that's why I'm bringing it up. As a leader of supervising reporters at the Observer Media Group, when you kind of know what you would like to do, but you want them to make the decision, how do you handle that? Like not saying too much. How do you handle that side of it where you're letting them make their decision?
Ask questions.
Yeah.
Just be inquisitive and oftentimes they know the answer or are close, but they just want that validation and they don't necessarily want to make the decisions themselves in some instances. And so if you build that relationship, they trust you, they feel safe and comfortable, and you're just asking questions, you can kind of lead them down the path and they come to their own conclusion and they own it. Well, I can easily tell someone, it's a 10-second conversation, do this and they will do it. But I mean, if I take 5 minutes and have a conversation and they come to their own conclusion, they feel like they own it. They've been a part of the process.
Yeah, owning it's so important. And you mentioned kids, and I think one of your children's the same age as our son is 17, graduating high school. Here we
Yeah.
are recording in mid-May, and he's about to graduate high school and go to USF actually.
All right. Go Bulls.
Yes, go Bulls in Tampa. But leadership is so much like parenting in that way, where you want them to figure that out and get their information and own their decision.
Yeah, I mean, you want to create a sense of independence in their part. I mean, I then I become a bottleneck. I'm not always available. I try to be as accessible as I can, and banker hours is a myth. I wish that was the case, but yeah, I'm responding to things all night long and text messages, and so yeah. I mean, the more that they can do themselves, it's a better client experience, especially if our client is waiting on them and they have to come to me to get the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just move it along.
Talking about bankers, bankers hours is a myth, which I totally agree. There's no, if you want to do a job good, there's no bankers hours. If you want to be really excel at it, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters what space you're in, but you know, how do you lead with certainty at times where there's things that are very uncertain? Right now, your industry, whether it's tariffs or interest rates, there's always something compounding whether or not somebody's going to take that loan, do that project, do that deal. So, how do you lead with certainty in confusing and uncertain times?
I will say that, Mark, everybody wants certainty and everybody's craving certainty. And going back to our other conversation, people always they want comfort and just tell me what to do. And assuming that I know or they go to someone else, just tell me the best course of action. And the reality is that everything that we do is uncertain. So I think we do the best. We gather all the information we can. We make educated guesses. And hopefully you have a lot of information. So it's not so much of a guess. You've got a pretty good feeling. And then at some point you just need to take action and move forward and adjust quickly. Be nimble. And if you realize that you're off track or making a mistake, then course correct and get back on track. But I think the analysis paralysis and just not moving forward because you're unsure often results in you being in a worse position unless you just like move forward.
Yeah, lost opportunities, for
Yeah.
sure. What's a piece of advice, leadership advice that you receive, whether from a mentor, maybe even read in a book, but what's something that really helped get you to where you are today? A piece of advice in your life.
This is a terrible question, Mark. It seems like such a great question, and I wish I had a good answer for you. I was asked this recently on a panel, and I don't know that I have a good one. I mean, one piece of advice that I had heard was, they don't need to like you; they just need to respect you. And when I was younger, I thought that made sense. Although I kind of question it, and it didn't take long for me to realize that no, it's not. That's not the way people do business. I mean, people want to like you, and through that like, they trust you, and everything that really in every course of business, and certainly like our world, it's all about relationships. So they need to like you. So build. My advice would be is just build relationships, connect with people on the deepest level that you can, get to know them, and you're going to be better off for it.
Well, it goes to a point, and I'm sure you've seen these reports and surveys that show when people leave work, it's usually not because of salary, and it's a lot of it is they didn't like their manager, and they didn't, get along. Like that was a problem, and that comes up all the time. That doesn't mean you have to bend over, but that comes up, right? It's important.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's tough love sometimes, and
Yes,
you're not always gonna we're adults, and we come to any relationship or conversation with different perspectives and different experiences in life, and you're not always gonna see eye to eye, but it's the ability I always say there's a direct correlation between your ability to have hard conversations and your ability to have good relationships. So if you can have those hard conversations, you will develop good trusting relationships, and it's a muscle that you need to build, and nobody likes having hard conversations. Nobody goes in unless you're, a complete psycho. Nobody wants to go in and have a fight and a hard conversation, but to be able to do it respectfully and honestly, I mean, that's where the secret sauce is.
totally. And one last point on that, and it's actually a common guest that you and I have both had on our podcast. I think she might have been episode number 9 or 10 for From the Corner Office, but Heather Caston, one of my absolute favorite people in the world, president and CEO of the Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. And she will joke around, and she probably said this on yours. I think she definitely said it on ours. People think she's Susie Sunshine and she's always so happy because she's a chamber president, but she will say, don't confuse my kindness with weakness. And I think that's such a great line for leaders, right?
That is a great line.
Yes,
And I don't know that I have anything to add to that. I think it stands by itself. And yeah, I would agree with you. Heather's fantastic.
he is. All right. Oh, and as we are, like I said, recording this in mid-May, and we're into the summer months. What last question for you? What can we expect from Bank of Tampa? What's new and exciting around the corner for Bank of Tampa the rest of this year?
I think, we're in a growth phase. We feel confident. We live in one of the best markets in the country. The Tampa Bay market by itself is the fourth most diverse economy in the United States. So I feel we're well positioned. I think the hardest thing we've got going for us in our area is affordability, and that has impacted some of the, domestic migration to the area and slowing down growth a little bit. And some of that's like we needed to catch our breath. We had such an influx of people that came in, and property values have surged and has created some issues as a result of that. I mean, growth can be a good problem, but growth without being able to have the infrastructure and housing to keep up with is a challenge. But I would say that the bank's in a great position. We're Tampa Bay's oldest and largest community bank. We continue to grow and expand to meet our clients' needs. We've gone through some major technology upgrades and changes. So we're combining that relationship value and driven organization that we've always been, but marrying that with the tech piece because we've got clients that, quite frankly, we love to talk to them. You call the Bank of Tampa, you're going to get somebody live on the phone. By the third ring, someone's going to pick up. Some people don't want to talk to anybody, so they want to do everything digitally and electronically. And so we have all of that infrastructure, and really, I mean, we are a community bank, but we are a regional community bank. And I think over the next several years, in terms of that growth, it's not only balance sheet growth, and gaining additional clients and making sure that we're bringing our banking to the folks that want that relationship style banking, but also meeting them from a geography perspective. So we're looking at a few locations, and so I think you could see some new Bank of Tampa signs popping up over the next several years.
Excellent. New Bank of Tampa signs and new banker with signs. So we love it. All right. Excellent. Owen LaFave, Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa and host of the Money Market Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on From the Corner Office.
Thank you, Mark. Had a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.